Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone watching this month's High Vibe Tribe video book review. And it's just Cheryl and I today. So we're going to keep it short and sweet and share a couple of books that we really enjoyed. And Cheryl, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us which book you're sharing today.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Murphy. I am a spiritual medium and psychic. I help people connect with their loved ones who have crossed over or transitioned by providing evidential information and validation that love never dies and they're always here to love and support us. So usually my books, when I come on with Liz to do book referrals, they're usually have a spiritual twist to them, and today is no exception. And I love this book I'm going to recommend for you today. It's by John Donahue, and I bought it on audio CD, so because I love listening to his voice also. But it's called The Blessing, To Bless the Space Between Us. And John Donahue, he's an Irish poet, he's a philosopher, he's a scholar, and this book is about prayers and invocations. It's about blessings and how wonderful it is for us how to start our day off with that type of energy. And then a lot he talks about is just getting started in life, right? Because getting started on something that you dream or desire, that's actually a natural part of who we are. We're supposed to start new beginnings and new things. So really that's about 95% of it, right, Liz?
Yeah.
So once you can get started though, if you just listen to his voice or read his prayers of blessings and invocations, that the level of frequency and vibration that you just hear, it's music to your ears to hear this. What I also like about him is he's a very simple, kind, generous soul. I mean, I know you can tell that when you look at his other books also, but the reason why I like this one also, the space between us, to bless the space between us, is that you can even have it on in the background while he's reading these prayers, or even this poetry is really what it sounds like. And that way I have it on in the background even, and it's like food for your soul. It just makes you feel so good. And once again, as he always says, when we send a blessing out to someone, it's like we're also blessing ourselves, right? So a lot of universal laws, right? What goes around comes around, what we put out comes back to us. And even though this was written back in 2008, I think, or 2007, it seems very useful for today, very poignant, even for today's events or vibration, what's happening. So he really must be ahead of his time, because the frequency that you'll feel when you either listen to his book or read the words, I know you'll benefit from.
Nice. So he should be a member of our High Vibe Tribe.
He should be. He is.
Nice.
Yes.
And this sounds like a nice recommendation for your Healing Prayer Circle gang.
It does. It does. Yeah. It's beautiful. Just listening to his voice once again. I mean, this man has such deep reverence about what he's talking about and teaching at the same time. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. So can you put that up to the camera a little more and try not to get glare? So it's all glary now. Okay, that's better. So John O. Donahue.
Yeah, John O. Donahue.
To bless the space between us. Okay, cool. I'll be sure to share that link in this video.
Yeah, thank you, John O. Donahue.
Nice. So while we're on the topic of prayers and we have Cheryl Murphy here, I just want to give a shout out to Cheryl, who does a monthly healing prayer circle that's super healing. So I'll put a link to that below this video as well if you're interested in Cheryl's voice alone is a healing prayer. So you can imagine what her monthly healing prayer circle is like, with meditations and mini readings for people and stuff like that. Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you, Cheryl. And today I am sharing a book by Wayne Dyer, and it's really his memoir. And I think Wayne Dyer passed a year or two ago. Do you know, Cheryl, when he passed?
Yes, I think it was right at about 2 years ago.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Not too long ago, though.
Yeah. So, and I was surprised. I found this book at the library, and it's called I Can See Clearly Now. I'm going to share a cover of that book real quick. Hold on. Let me share my screen and show you the cover of that book. Whoops. Here it is. So there's the cover of his book. And I was not that into it, but it was the only Wayne Dyer book I found in the library. So I'm like, oh, I'll just get it. But then I started to read it, and I'm like, it's no wonder. It's no wonder that I picked up this book. So I can stop sharing the screen here.
Okay.
So what was really interesting about this book is to find out about his life. And Wayne grew up, like as a foster child, because his father was abusive, alcoholic mess who left them when they were young. So it was actually a good thing. And his mother couldn't afford, it was during the Depression or, some financial, I think it's during the Depression. His mother couldn't afford to take care of him. So he had to put him and his brother into foster homes. So it's really interesting what he does throughout the book is he talks about kind of his journey and how forks in the road showed up and how he took different paths, and he reflecting back on his life saying, and he'd always use the phrase, I can see clearly now how this brought me here. And it was so fascinating to hear how he, the first book that he wrote, Your Erroneous Zone, I think, do you remember that? Don't you have that book, Cheryl? You mentioned you read it?
Yeah.
That was his very first book, which I've read a lot of Wayne Dyer over my life, but it never really totally sunk in when I was reading it at the time. It wasn't quite, it was just like, oh, whatever. Didn't sink in. This one's sinking in. But it's interesting, when he wrote that book, the publishers are like, hey, you'll be lucky if we sell 5,000 of them. And he's like, I don't think so. He's going to prove him wrong. And the way his book caught on is he decided he's going to go, he was a psychologist. So he had a client base of people that he, helped. So he understood what people's problems were or whatever. So he was comfortable with talking. So he decided he was going to start going to radio stations and get interviewed. And the radio station thing really started to catch on. And he wanted to get that book out there. So his publishers were like hesitant about, they had no marketing budget for him. They didn't want to put money or anything into him. So like, I'm going to do it myself. So he ended up ordering 3,000 books and put them in his garage. So that the publishers are saying, oh, the books are selling, So he kind of fueled the publishers. Oh. And then he started during his, he was a professor in a college in New York City. So he had the summers off. So he up and traveled the country going to radio stations. And this is how he started selling his books and starting to be getting known. So he talks about the journey. And at the beginning of the book, I think he says the Erroneous Zone ended up selling 100 million copies.
Oh my.
That's just one of 40 books. That's just one. And he talked about how he knew he was going to get on the Johnny Carson show, or he knew he had to get on some big thing. And he talks about the story of how he got onto the Johnny Carson show. Super fascinating. And someone else couldn't show up. They needed a fill-in. And then he ended up being on the Johnny Carson show 40 times in his lifetime. Some crazy amount. Oh, and it's just, what was really sunk in for me was the limitlessness of our ability to be whatever we want in our life. And I highly recommend this read because he's saying, this is just what happened. This is what I was paying to. He was aligned with intention. So I can see clearly now about Dr. Wayne Dyer. Highly recommend it. It's a great story. And I was skeptical when I first got it. I'm like, I wasn't that interested, but then I got into it. So that's a worthy read. And I know that I've watched his movie, The Shift. Did you ever see The Shift?
I've seen it multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah. Good movie. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of interesting, kind of an interesting little part of The Shift that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And Ellen DeGeneres and her wife,
Portia.
Thank you, Portia de Rossi, right? They were mentioned in Wayne Dyer's book because they asked him to marry him. Did you know that little?
Yes, I know. There's a picture of him with both of them at their wedding. Yeah.
So I found that interesting, on top of the fact that Neil Donald Walsh was connected with Ellen DeGeneres as well. They were told, and they were they read Conversations with God, and it was really interesting that Ellen's kind of got this spiritual path, she and Portia, that you wouldn't know about unless you read the books and you understand that they care about, you know, their evolution of consciousness. So it was kind of an interesting little tidbit. But there's so many great stories in Wayne Dyer's books. Well, a worthy read. So thank you, Cheryl, for joining us for February's 2019 High Vibe Tribe book review. And if you like this, we've got a whole bunch of over a year worth of book reviews you can see on our website. Now there will be a link to all of those below this video. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Namaste. Namaste.